Yes, thank you, everyone. So again, my name is Jacqueline Fitch, and I'm really excited to be here today to introduce our panelists and to jump right in. So we have three panelists today. First, we have Banu Ratnaswaran. She's the head of enterprise innovation at TD Bank, where she spent the last few years focusing on big I innovation to future-proof the bank. She's known for her industry experience around digital payments and has a strong passion for women in tech. And outside of TD, she's co-founded a not-for-profit called Dads for Daughters in STEM. And she lives in Toronto with her husband and two young children, ages 7 and 2. Next, we have Denise Zhang. She's a global lead for responsible Metaverse at Accenture, where she leads a team of technologists, strategists, and policy experts working to foster trust in the Metaverse, deliver insights, and build responsible and human-centric experiences. Prior to this role, she led strategic initiatives for Accenture's chair and CEO. Denise's work has focused on privacy, security, internet governance, and inclusion and diversity in technology. And last but not least, we have Alyssa Taylor. She's responsible for Microsoft's global industry, data, AI, and mixed reality and business applications product marketing. Her team is focused on creating product strategies, building go-to-market plans, helping sellers be more effective, and executing impactful marketing plans for some of the fastest growing products in Microsoft's portfolio, including Power Platform, Dynamics 365, Azure AI, industry clouds, and emerging technologies like the Metaverse. So please help me in welcoming all of our panelists. And we're going to jump right in. This is why we all came here today. So first, let's start off by talking about the broad concept of the Metaverse. So Alyssa, if you're willing to take the first question here, how do you see the Metaverse transforming business and our world?
Absolutely, and thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone. So I thought that video was great because it talked about some of the use cases that we're seeing that are emerging across the Metaverse. And really, the definition that we're anchoring on at Microsoft as we're learning and going through this journey is that we believe the Metaverse is a fundamentally new way for people to interact and to blend that physical and digital realms. And while that's a pretty broad definition, that's actually the point. Because it's ultimately a paradigm shift, and Chai and Melanie talked about this as well. It's a paradigm shift in how we interact, and it's the next emerging compute platform. So when we think about all of the technologies that allow for a persistent digital representation, it connects across every aspect of the world. So we look at it from a people standpoint. So how do people interact? How do you create new places, new immersive worlds? What are the things that you can do in those worlds? And then also the business process side of it, because I think that's also another use case that is emerging, which is how do organizations be able to remotely manage and monitor facilities? How are they able to meet their sustainability goals by using the Metaverse to really anchor on key business outcomes? And so when it comes down to it, it's all about the people and the experiences and the connections that we crave. And we know, if the pandemic taught us anything, we aren't able to be everywhere that we want to be. And so the Metaverse allows us to come together in very unique ways to create new experiences and to really power new business opportunities. So there's just all of these different facets and variations that the Metaverse is unlocking.
Yeah, so true. Thank you for that. Bonnie, did you want to add?
Sure, thank you. And again, thank you for having me. This is such a wonderful forum. And as I was kind of watching that video and the experience you guys put together, I was kind of imagining, hopefully the next time around, we all get to be in the Metaverse, having this conversation and this panel. So looking forward to that. But, I'd like to, I would say I'd agree with Alyssa in terms of kind of how you captured it. But I think for me, the Metaverse is really just another possible medium for communication, bringing with it really new opportunities for connection, mobility, and collaboration in a way that, none of us have really seen before. Something that, should enrich our real life experience and not replace it. And I think that's an important call out. Here at TD right now, we're building for those early adopters, but for me, we've been having this, kind of bet really internally around when is that true adoption going to be real? So I've put my bet on 2040, and really I've anchored that on when 6G becomes ubiquitous, right? When are we going to have that connection availability so that we can really truly allow for that real adoption? We've taken the approach from an enterprise perspective, I'd say, across 3 different pillars. One, and I think the most relevant one for us today, is colleagues. We have real opportunities today that we can solve. I'm sure, like many of you, and we've talked a little bit about the pandemic and, in terms of the experiences. So we moved to fully virtual, like I'm sure many of you, during the pandemic itself. And as we now come, out of it, whether you're calling it post-pandemic or an endemic, we're either 100% virtual or hybrid. And we've heard from our colleagues, especially the ones that moved to virtual in our call centers, that they're looking for different opportunities and ways to connect and stay connected. And they're missing a sense of that connection and community that we used to have when people were in the office. So we're really looking at Metaverse as a platform and an opportunity around how do we actually bring some of that connectedness together. And so just, even today we're piloting some of our onboarding activities for our colleagues through Metaverse experiences. And we're going to be doing that as a pilot over these next couple months. And excitedly, like I'm excited to say our executives are super excited. It's one of the spaces from an engagement perspective that we've been struggling with in this hybrid world. It's also a workforce that tends to have very high turnover, and that engagement really, really matters. So we're sending people Oculus headsets, and we're going to be onboarding some new colleagues into the organization through these experiences. And since these colleagues will have the headsets themselves, we're looking to create some other experiences across kind of their journey with the organization on how we can continue to engage them. So it's exciting. It's exciting to be able to pilot real things today that, we hope will solve problems. The second piece is customers. And I'd say our approach is test and learn. And we've used, we've heard that language here before. And really, it shouldn't be a surprise. We don't have customers banging our doors going, what is TD Bank doing in the metaverse? So we're taking, we're kind of, standing on the sidelines, watching what's happening both from an open and closed metaverse perspective. It shouldn't be surprising to folks that from a banking perspective, we're highly regulated. Our biggest asset is trust with our customers. So we need to be incredibly careful in terms of how we actually operate in an open metaverse environment, as you think about privacy, as you think about data and so forth. So some of the capabilities that we are testing are more so, I would say, initially leaning forward from a closed metaverse experience, and then evolving and learning what we do kind of in those open spaces like Decentraland. And then last but not least, I would say top of mind for me as a leader, and again, probably not surprising, is how do I get teams, people, the organization prepared for the future, right? So as I think about upskilling talent, it's hard to find, talent in the ecosystem that know how to operate in the space. So how do we, upskill our designers to be able to develop and design in the metaverse space? How do we upskill our developers? How do we upskill our product engineers? So those are kind of some of the things that we're thinking about here at TD. And I'll say with all of these new mediums, our approach hasn't changed. Our approach has always been to be where our customers are and maintain their trust, no matter where it is that we operate.
Thanks for that. You mentioned trust and the fact that, banking and all of that. What do you think? Why is there so much importance on the concept of building a responsible metaverse? If you can expand on that just a little bit more. Yeah,
absolutely. We're seeing it today, right? Like as we stand on the sidelines, kind of watching what other brands are doing. There's been good things and bad. Like when someone walks in, I'll take, we've been exploring the opportunity of building some space in Decentraland, but we've also seen what consumers are doing in that space, whether, the language that they're using. We've seen fraud. And today, from an open metaverse experience perspective, you can imagine from a bank, it's incredibly difficult to be able to control and help customers in a way that we need to. So those are just some examples. I think we'll get there. I think, my belief, and this is my personal belief, is that we'll probably land on some hybrid opportunities, but we're just testing, right? That's kind of where we need to start, and we'll take baby steps, especially in the open spaces, and then be a little bit bold in the closed spaces where we can actually share data with our customers.
Makes sense. And Denise, as the global lead for responsible metaverse, how would you help everyone understand the importance of building a responsible metaverse?
Honestly, I think it's one of the most foundational elements of any type of metaverse related initiative, right? One of the first questions that we get from people when we talk to clients and we talk to users about the metaverse is, what about safety? What about privacy? What about security? Can I trust the metaverse as a place to welcome my family, my children, right? What does it happen to what happens to in real life, in person to person experiences if we're conducting all this business in the metaverse? And so these are things that we need to really grapple with in advance and be building the metaverse in a way that is trusted and that fundamentally is human centric, right? And that's how I think about it. That's how we think about it at Accenture. We define it across 8 different dimensions, from trust dimensions, where we think a lot about privacy and security and resilience and intellectual property rights protection, things that are really important to how you sort of build the technology and craft the product policies, right? To the human dimensions, issues around inclusion, diversity, accessibility, sustainability, and very, very importantly, wellness, right? Mental and physical wellness in the metaverse. And I think what's truly, truly interesting about the metaverse is that across all of these 8 dimensions, there are massive opportunities in addition to the risks. It's not like the risk is greater than the opportunities. In fact, you can use the metaverse to become much more sustainable, right? You can use the metaverse to help people that may feel like they don't have the ability to express themselves in real life and real life settings as easily, to do so in a virtual environment. And with the Web3 sort of craze that we're starting to see take place now, we're also empowering average people, right, to participate in a new creator economy and in some ways generate more financial inclusion. So I think it's all very, very exciting, but we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that there are real risks. And our companies, from the ones that are building it to the ones that are using it to those who are advising on it, we need to be really cognizant of these risks and how to mitigate them.
Yeah, great points. And Alyssa, from your perspective, what do you think the importance of building a responsible metaverse is?
Well, I think my colleagues have said it well. It really comes down to the cornerstone around trust, access, representation, inclusion, safety, privacy. I mean, these are all things that every organization has to sort of wrestle with. And, I would say that the two additional things that I would add is, having a set of principles, consistent principles for engagement and collaboration are really important to be able to know, all of the kind of facets that you want to put around access and representation and inclusion and safety and privacy. So really being clear on those principles and the principles for engagement and collaboration. And then the other aspect is the willingness to learn, because this is an emerging, as we talked about, sort of an emerging platform, an emerging paradigm. And so having a growth mindset of, understanding, different facets of the metaverse where there are breaches in trust or safety or privacy, acting quickly on that. One of the things we actually had recently, we have our Metaverse Immersive World platform is something called AltSpace VR. And we learned that our users, as they came into the common social hubs, they didn't feel safe because there were people yelling, there were racial slurs, there were inappropriate behavior. So we moved quickly to eliminate the social hubs. And so we learned from our users and our communities where they didn't feel safe. And they didn't trust the environment, and we took actions to do that. And so I think in addition to having consistent principles, this willingness to learn is a really pretty critical aspect of, as we enter new territories, we start to really have these new experiences that we're all navigating.
Yeah, definitely. So if we switch topics just a little bit, I mean, not topics, right? But questions here. So Denise, back to you. what are some of the unique challenges that you have noticed in the metaverse, that folks should be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, I think the metaverse, what it does is it's combining a lot of the challenges that we're seeing around XR, Web3, and artificial intelligence all together, right? So issues around identity, right? And privacy and security concerns around your identity, issues around copyright infringement. When you look at NFTs, for example, online safety, trust and safety is a huge area that we need to tackle for the metaverse. Well, when you combine Web3, XR, and AI together to form the metaverse, these existing challenges become even more tricky to grapple with. And then when you layer on top of that, the fact that the metaverse really knows no physical boundaries, right? Questions around jurisdiction. Which jurisdiction are you operating in? If users are meeting up together in the metaverse, right, from different, they reside in different jurisdictions. The metaverse service may be hosted by an entity that is in a particular jurisdiction. The service itself, the hosting infrastructure, may be in another jurisdiction. All of these questions arise around what are the privacy rights, what are the requirements, and how do you meet the expectations of your users in this environment? So I think emerging challenges are really quite tricky in this space. And what we need to be doing is understanding sort of what is the particular use case and what are the minimum requirements that we need to put into place given existing laws, given what consumers expect, given the mission and values of our companies. What are the net new challenges that the metaverse creates around, interoperability, for example, or around the privacy of biometric data or data that's generated as we put sensors on our bodies, right? And with those net new challenges, how do we address them responsibly? Because there may not be good existing guidance around that. So emerging challenges, I mean, I think we actually did a survey, a global survey recently, and we're still evaluating the results of the survey. But what we're finding is that overwhelmingly, consumers across the world are most concerned about three things. They're concerned about safety, privacy, and security in the metaverse. And before we get those things right, they may be really apprehensive to go forward and adopt. So to make the metaverse truly mainstream, we're going to need to have solutions to these challenges.
Yeah, I love how you coined emerging challenges, because that's true. Like there's a set of challenges, but they're all evolving day over day. So it's really interesting to think about how what might have been one challenge today is a similar but evolved challenge tomorrow. So that was really helpful for me to think about. So how is Accenture uniquely positioned to help our clients with all these things, metaverse, all these challenges, and all this new technology?
Well, as you know, we have something like 60,000 people now in the metaverse, thanks to our partnership with Microsoft as well as with Meta. We are using the Oculus as our device stack for now. And so we have a lot of lessons learned from our own experience. And based on those lessons learned, we've essentially put together a handbook, a set of principles, like what Alyssa is talking about, to guide our own journey here. And it ranges from issues around data privacy to how we ensure, a code of conduct is put in place for users, our own enterprise users in the metaverse. And so we're kind of like practicing what we preach. We're taking these early learnings, we're codifying them as principles, and then we're continuing to evolve and improve them, and frankly engage many of our employees through our employee resource groups, through our super users, through our ecosystem partners, to continue to improve and enhance these practices and adjust over time. And then when we meet with clients, when we advise our clients on it, we're taking our own learnings and applying it to their challenges. So I think that's what truly differentiates us in many ways, is that we're really practicing what we preach.
Yeah, for sure. So switching over to kind of learning a little bit more about you all and your journeys here. The next question here is, in terms of as a leader in cloud and technology, what do you all want to be known for? So maybe Banu, if I can jump over to you, what would you like to be known for?
Sure. I'd say being open-minded, taking risks, and driving change. Like I fundamentally believe you kind of have to roll up your sleeves and just dive in, and like no better example than kind of what the topic we're talking about, right? Like the metaverse. Just like, you know, even at home, like I feel like I have the best job in the world right now. Like not every day do I get to buy cool toys like the Oculus and put it on. And my daughter was like, is like, you know, I'd say I'm working, right? Because I have this headset on in the evening and going through stuff. And my daughter's like, no, you're not, you're playing, mommy. And I'm like, no, this is my job. So I fundamentally believe that, like, just roll up your sleeves, learn, do it yourself. And that's kind of like the best way, you know, to educate yourself in this space.
Great. How about you, Alyssa? Oh, Alyssa.
Was that
yeah.
Sorry, there was some audio glitch there, so I didn't know where it was going.
No worries.
You know, I would say two things. You know, I think for all of us as leaders of the cloud, we're sort of in this unbelievable place and time where change is happening at an unprecedented rate. And I know it's a little bit cliche to say that, but it is true. Like every day, every month, you know, something new is on the horizon. And I talked a little bit about this when we were talking about the responsibility around Metaverse, but, you know, this growth mindset of, you know, going from a fixed mindset of assuming, you know, everything we've done in the past is how we will do it in the future. I think that notion has been sort of blown out of the water. And so I'm a big proponent of just, you know, listening, learning, and adapting. And I think as leaders in the cloud, we have an opportunity to do that not only for ourselves, but for the organizations that we serve and the market at large. So I think that's you know, just a very unique challenge. And then I think there is this, somebody described me yesterday as bold but compassionate. And I thought, you know, that I'd never heard that before, but I do think that as a leader in the cloud, like that resonated. I want to be bold. I want to be able to push the envelope. I want to learn new technologies like Metaverse and see how they can change and shape the world. But I think compassion is something that, you know, as leaders in the cloud, we have to have every day. We have to have compassion for ourselves and to make sure we take care of ourselves. We have to have compassion for our colleagues and the people that we work with every day, and then compassion for what's happening across the world. And so that, you know, I think while I didn't coin it, I actually thought it resonated with me, that be bold, but be compassionate.
Love it. And Denise, what would you like to be known for?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've been thinking about this a little bit, and I love the be bold and compassionate. I wish I had a mantra like that as well. But as I think about, you know, what I want to be known for, I think it's to bring new people, new voices, and new expertise to technology. I mean, this is a field that until more recently and still today, you know, there's not enough diversity in our field. And I think it's incumbent on all of us to look across our network, to find people that we can mentor, that we can help enable. And I think that is probably going to be my greatest legacy, right? At the end of the day, I hope, is what I can do to sort of pave the way for other young, aspiring, diverse people to realize their dreams in this space and get much more involved in emerging technologies and shaping the future of emerging technologies. So I think there's that individual aspect of sort of paying it back. Like, you know, I benefited from my own mentors. How can I pay it back? But also, I think just for the good of sort of our consumers, our user base, there need to be, frankly, much more diverse and inclusive voices influencing how technology is developed, how it's put into practice to ensure that it's fair, that it's equitable, that it's responsible. So I really do think that is part of my mission, and I hope, you know, a legacy at the end of my career, which is not anytime soon here, but you know, a North Star for sure.
I love that. On the topic of people, kind of a throw-in question here for all of you, or for any of you that want to answer. But talking about bringing people in, bringing in a diverse subset of people, how are your folks responding to kind of the talent and upskilling journey that we're trying to take people on in regards to the metaverse? Who wants to take that one?
I'll jump in here. I would say, because we talked about, Denise talked about documentation, and, I think all of that is we're evolving the resources as we go. But I actually think the best way, when we talk specifically about metaverse, and I would say this is true of any emerging technology, is to immerse yourself in it. So I thought at the beginning, Chai talked about, like, she had to figure out passwords, and she had to figure out, what does it mean to put the device on? And, you get a little dizzy when you first do that. But there's nothing better than to actually kind of walk in the shoes of a user, and how they're interacting with that technology. And so I would say, getting immersed in the technology is always my go-to of how to learn. And then I think, our organizations and the organizations that are all participating in the metaverse will continue to document and do some of the, more traditional learning resources and guidebooks and things like that. And I think that's incumbent on all of us to do.
That's a great call. I mean, I started getting into the metaverse just by becoming a participant in the pilot that we were running at Accenture, putting a headset on for the first time, experiencing some of those platforms, and the experience myself, welcoming people into a space to gather when I was bringing in the family network. And I was standing at the virtual door in alt space saying, welcome, come on in. And my heart was just so full with the idea of actually welcoming someone into my home, which I hadn't done in 2 years with the pandemic, right? So it was this feeling of welcome. And but you're right, that the immersion and being able to have those experiences, I think, really kickstarts your journey to want to learn more, and it fuels that fire. So thanks, I appreciate that. And I also love, one of my favorite things about the AltSpace platform is the 2D accessibility. So people can immerse themselves in it regardless of kind of if they have a device or not. So
yes. Yep,
I think that's
absolutely.
a great function as well. So Banu or Denise, anything you wanted to add about kind of how you guys are addressing talent and upskilling in the metaverse?
Yeah, I could talk a little bit about it as well. So no different than kind of what Alyssa mentioned. We've internally started to do road shows. So we have a set of Oculus headsets, and we've been going into other teams and actually getting them to put it on. And we kind of have done this internal training type thing just to get people to actually touch and feel it. Like I mentioned, especially with new technology, I'm also a firm believer that's the best way to learn. I think I kind of mentioned at the start of this, again, from an upskilling talent perspective, it's been hugely top of mind for us as we think about particular skill sets and roles. Like we don't have designers today on the team until recently, as they're taking now courses and trying to find things online to learn themselves around how do you design the best experiences, right? Like as we're going in and seeing it's not perfect, and nobody expects it to be perfect, but how do we, especially as an organization who wants to be legendary in terms of the experiences that we create for our customers, it's something that that our talent themselves are so excited as soon as they hear about the fact that we're starting to invest into capabilities around the metaverse. Like I have tons of people who reach out, but it's been nice to see that people are taking it among themselves to kind of go out and learn, even though that resources might not exist at full maturity.
Yeah, and I would just add that I think, the way that I've heard our CEO, a female herself, talk about talent issues and how we grow talent, especially in these emerging technology areas, is that we need to be thinking about ourselves as not just talent consumers, but talent creators, companies of talent creators, right? And so that's why we've invested so significantly in what we're calling TQ, our technology quotient, and requiring our employees to go through training in emerging technologies, every year, sometimes every quarter. And we're being very, very concerted about what those topics are, right? XR, blockchain, AI, technologies that are really shaping the metaverse and other sort of key critical technology areas that are important to our clients. And we've also started to map skills adjacencies. So if you don't necessarily have the skills in blockchain today, what are the sort of adjacent skills that make you best suited to be upskilled into these areas? And so, from a combination of basically using technology to identify those skills across our business and, across our networks, and then what kind of training they need, we're really trying to grow our pipeline of talent in this space. So, that's kind of how we're approaching it, especially in these, hot areas that are so new where the talent base is still being developed. We just got to train it ourselves.
Great point. So I think it's about time here to wrap up our panel. So we're going to do one more question for all of you in terms of what advice would you like to give for someone just starting out? So Bonnie, do you want to take this first?
Sure. I think we heard it here, so it'll sound a bit repetitive, but learn. Like, be just naturally curious, go out there. I think we heard, like, watch those YouTube videos. There's tons and tons of information, probably too much information right now on Metaverse. I think it's like the word of the year, I feel like. So go out there and learn and leverage your network, meet people. Like, I think as soon as this was, kind of on my plate naturally from an innovation perspective, there's been tons of forums, virtual forums on the Metaverse, and you meet such interesting people. I'll leave it at that, in quotes, interesting. But you learn, right? You have conversations with these folks who are across the world, who are looking at leveraging spaces like Decentraland. Like I was talking to this gentleman who wants to have his own comedy club in Decentraland. He bought space beside this particular brand because he thinks as people are walking by, they'll see him perform for free and eventually want to be able to pay to see his comedy act. So like experiences and use cases I would have never thought about, but you kind of have to just throw yourself in there. So that's what I'd say.
Alyssa, what about you? What advice do you have?
Well, I think definitely building off of the learning, I would say if I had to summarize, I would say, someone just starting out in their career, be present, learn, be aware of the world around you, and, grow every single day. I had the pleasure when I was early in career, somebody gave me great advice that I keep with me every single day, which is when you wake up in the morning, ask yourself, a couple of questions. What am I excited about? Because it puts you in this frame of knowing that there's, what are you excited about the day? And it brings enthusiasm into your day. What impact can I have? Like what discipline, whatever discipline you're in, know kind of the impact that you could have in your role for the organization, again, for the markets that you serve. And then the best one is what gives me energy. And I check in on that often of like, what is giving me energy and what's taking away my energy, and really sort of gravitating and focusing on the things that give me energy, because there's, in the pace of the world right now, and we're all in technology, like there's so much going on that you have to sort of harness your own personal energy. And so I guess I would pass that along. So knowing every day what you're excited about, what you're going to accomplish, and what gives you energy, and rinse and repeat.
Love it. And Denise, advice from you?
Yeah, I don't know that I have a ton more advice to give than what Alyssa and Bonnie just said. I think that's terrific advice and quite comprehensive, in fact. I maybe would just add, it's okay to not have a plan, I think. Like, I think a lot of young people, as they get started, think they need to have a grand strategy and they need to be on some 5-10-year plan. And I don't think that's the case. I think to some degree, know what matters to you, know what have principles, have values, make sure that you're following those principles and values. And as Alyssa said, do things that give you energy, but don't be too prescribed in what you're doing. I think keep an open mind and see to some degree where the wind takes you. I think it's making sure that you're following your values, your principles, keeping that level of energy, and always learning, always learning. I think when we feel like we're not learning anymore and we've achieved a level of stasis in our everyday lives, that's when you got to change. And so that's what I would recommend to the young people who are just getting started in this.
That's fantastic. You know, it's interesting with my kids, instead of asking them what they want to be, you ask, what do you want to do? What are some of the problems you want to solve? Because I've had 4 different careers already, right? So it's not having them pinpoint that this is the one thing I'm going to do, but I love how you put that, follow where the wind takes you. So with that, thank you all, panelists. I really appreciate it. Appreciate your time. And this has just been a fantastic discussion. I'm going to pass it back to Patty now, who's going to kick off the next part of the session. So thank you all again. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So much, everyone. Yeah, thank you.
Bravo, another great panel, you guys on our CXO Power panel. I appreciate y'all being here and sharing your nuggets of advice for us. There's certainly a lot of opportunity around the metaverse, but also a lot of responsibility that we need to bring to the table. It's really great to see female leaders in these positions really kind of blazing that trail around the metaverse. And we see that throughout the market and the industry as well. I do think there's a lot of sort of evening out the playing ground that the metaverse can sort of bring to women in particular, right? In terms of just removing bias and appearing in the metaverse the way you want to appear and not the way you maybe physically appear. So I think there's a lot of differentiators and opportunities specifically for women in the metaverse. So it's just a really exciting time for us. Thanks again for sharing your experience and knowledge with us. We are going to transition into breakouts of your choice. Alyssa, I think we have a slide, right, that shows the fantastic female leaders that we've gathered here today to share their experience with you in the breakout of your choice. We have Alyssa here to talk about developing your leadership style. We have Lori Meyer talking about building your personal brand.